Well, thank you very much, everyone, to join us for this seminar at the AI. So I'm Ana Valdivia. I'm a lecturer in AI government and policy. And I would like to thank you, everyone, for being today here. And today we have, I'm very honored because we have like a professor, Dr. Paola Ricaurte, that I really admire. So I'm very happy that we managed to invite you to Europe and you managed to come to Oxford. So, and we also have Boshi Wu. So Dr. Paola Ricaurte and Boshi Wu are today with us, and we are here to discuss the entanglements between bio-socio-algorithmic assemblages. So drawing upon the onto-epistemologies of indigenous thinkers, the talk acknowledged the diverse pathways being forged by indigenous communities in the territory of Abya Yala towards a future that embraces pluriversality and communality. And for those that are not familiar with the concept of Abya Yala, this is, well, maybe Paola, you might like explain that concept better than me, but this is a way of referring to the land and territory of Latin America from an indigenous perspective. So Paola Ricaurte is an associate professor in the Department of Media and Digital Culture at Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico, and faculty associate at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University. Alongside Nick Couldry and Ulises Mejías, she co-founded Tierra Común, a network of academics, practitioners, and activists interested in decolonizing data. And I'm very happy also to be part of that network, and I encourage you to also look at that network because the work that is presented there is amazing. And that's not because I'm part of that. So she's a member of the Alliance for Inclusive Algorithms and leads the Latin American and Caribbean Hub for Feminist AI Research Network. In addition to her academic work, she participates in civil society initiatives to promote digital rights, the development of public interest technologies, and the dissemination of the ecosocial impacts of technological developments. So this is Paola Ricaurte, and also together with us, we have Boshi. So Boshi is a master's student here at the OAI. Boshi works in Google DeepMind's Ethics and Society team alongside their part-time studies in the MSc in Social Science. Their research interests focus on the social and political impacts of AI, focusing on the materiality of AI infrastructure and implications for AI ethics and governance. They have previously worked as a policy researcher, lecturer, and a strategy consultant. And thank you very much, Boshi, for accepting the invitation to chair the session today. And just like a brief note, to mention that for your awareness, this event is being recorded and will be posted on our website following the event. The presentation will run for about 30-40 minutes, followed by a discussion at the end. If you're joining us online, please put your questions into the Q&A box on Zoom, and those in the room, save your questions until the end, and we will answer them after the talk. If you wish to ask questions with your mic or camera on, please raise your hand during the Q&A and we will call you. Be aware that this will be included in the recording, so your face and your voice will be posted on our website. So it's very great to have you, Paola and Boshi, and I leave the floor to you. And thank you very much, all of you, for being here. And I have to also thank you, Ellen, for organizing everything, because we have to also acknowledge admin people at the OEI. So thank you very much, Ellen, if you're hearing us, for facilitating everything. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very thankful to Dr. Ana Valdivia for the invitation. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Ellen, for making this possible as well. Thank you, Boshi, for joining us today in the conversation. I have my notes because when I have to speak in English, my brain doesn't work very well. So I would like to begin saying that I believe in the transformative power of collective energy. So every chance to meet with others is an opportunity for us to become better together. So a few words before I begin. Okay. This is not working. Okay. Apologies. First, as Anna was mentioning, I belong to these two networks, Tierra Común network and also the Feminist AI Research Network. And in these networks, we are trying to think about alternative ways to build technologies and also alternative way to develop technologies. So I also will speak from a feminist and decolonial perspective from Abya Yala, and Anna already explained what Abya Yala means. Abya Yala is a term that was coined that belongs to the Kuna language in the Darien zone, in the center part of the continent. And it means, it has like different meanings. I like, the one that I like is blooming earth, or a land in its maturity. So I will speak today about the concepts of coloniality and decoloniality, our existential crisis, and bio-algorithmic entanglements and technologies of radical care. And I will be finishing with thinking about our pluriversal future, and I'll try to explain all these terms because I know that sometimes when we try to understand reality, we create these concepts that try to grasp the complexity of reality. So I will try to explain everything. So today I have chosen to speak about what I think is fundamental in making sense of our current times, of our current human experience. I think we are falling to understand that we are deeply interconnected, and that this interconnection is what makes life possible. So today, I think this ontological rupture, so this rupture in this of these entanglements is threatening the very systems that support life. So the first framework that I will be using is the framework of coloniality and decoloniality. So this framework is a body of thought that emerged from the experiences of Latin American movements, social movements, and the experiences of resistance of the peoples in Abya Yala, from the very beginning. And the sociologist Aníbal Quijano in the 90s coined the term coloniality, or the coloniality of power, to explain how what we live today, at least in the territories that have experienced the process of colonialism, is an enduring process of domination. So despite the colonial system has ended formally, we still experience in our social order the matrix of power that was settled during the colony. So the coloniality of power, he says, means the daily control of every aspect of human life: control of work, natural resources, the products of our work, the body, the gender sexuality system, the control of authorities and institutions, the control of violence, who can exert violence, the control of subjectivity and intersubjective relations, the control of knowledge, and the control of communication. So in some way, what he was trying to explain is that the matrix of power is built upon this social order of classification that tries to control every sphere of human life. In other words, he says, the coloniality of power is the coloniality of being, of knowing, and feeling sensing. It's difficult to translate it into English because in Spanish, it comprehends different, everything that relates to what we are in terms of this sensible order, if I can say that. So perception, but sensations, but affections. It's on everything, right?
Sensuality.
Yeah, but also the affections, the emotions. So if we understand that this order of being, knowing, and sensing relates to creating a social regime and social order that tries to control the ontological relations or the ontological way in which we understand what we are, what's reality. The epistemic production or the epistemic order, how do we understand, produce knowledge, and also the sensitive regime, then we can understand that everything that happens is interconnected, that what we think about ourselves, about our reality, the way that we produce knowledge and the way that we relate to each other are connected. So the term coloniality serves us to explain the logic that sustained the supremacy of the West and its forms of epistemic and material domination through racial and gender difference. So basically, what happened during the colony is that the colonizers not only created a regime, like a physical regime of domination, but also an epistemic regime that legitimated the dispossession and the extractivist processes in the territories that were colonized. And this epistemic, social, and physical domination and material domination was based in a racial and gender difference. This means that because the colonized people were considered not humans or subhumans, they were not entitled to think, or the knowledge that they produced was not considered as knowledge. So if these people were not humans or were like subhumans, then the territories and the resources that were there were easily extracted. So for me, it's important to understand what the decolonial framework brings, because it helps us to understand the nexus between knowledge, power, and being, which sustains an endless war against specific bodies, knowledge, cultures, peoples, and territories. So this notion of having this social order that controls every dimension of what we are, what we think, in our relationships, is related to obtain everything that is possible of, the locus of extraction, but also these specific bodies, these racialized bodies, gender bodies, are the locus of dispossession and, of course, the locus of violence. So decolonization, or what we call the decolonization process or praxis, is a geopolitical project seeking to dismantle the material and symbolic structures of domination and exploitation that have been sustained after the colonial process ended formally. So if we think that we are living in a moment in society that we're experiencing different crises, when we take this framework, we can understand that this crisis is based in this rupture of our social relationships, but also the rupture of our relationships with the environment. So there is another author called Arturo Escobar from Colombia, and he says that we are living in a moment demarcated by terricide, which is the killing of the earth, and terricide and technology on one hand, and new conditions for thought on the other, that characterize the generalized existential crisis of the present. And he says, our existential crisis as a humanity is a set of interrelated crises of climate, energy, biodiversity, poverty, inequality, and meaning. So we're not living just in an existential crisis that comes from nothing. We are living in a crisis that comes from this rupture and this fracture of our relationships that make life possible. So Yasnaya Aguilar, who is a Mije linguist, writer, and activist. She says that this crisis is also related to this model of the world, to this social order that is based on violence and extractivism and dispossession. So she says it is a myth of the West choosing perpetual economic growth, advancing through a digested system of sorts, one that uses technology as one of its core components. In its turn, ecosystems became goods, people, mere consumers. The myth turned the world into a place increasingly inhospitable to human life and to life in general. So Abya Yala, as an indigenous thinker, is bringing this idea of this basic rupture with the understanding, this misunderstanding of our interconnectedness, and thinking about the ecosystems and the environment as something that you can use and you can exploit without considering that that is the origin of life. So we speak always about the climate crisis, but the climate crisis is in reality the result of this historical extractivism, dispossession, and violence against these bodies and these territories. So this process is not new. This process is historical. And technologies are just a way to optimize the exploitation and the dispossession at scale. So extractivism is a process in which we do not recognize the interconnectedness and continuity of our existence in relation to the territories we inhabit. And I was mentioning at the beginning that for us, at least in the territory of what we call Abya Yala, the colonization was the beginning of this process of extractivism, but also was this the creation of this epistemic order that legitimized the dispossession. So now, in the moment that we live in, we speak about globalization of a way to continue this process of extractivism and dispossession at scale. So we think of globalization as the free flow of goods, but the limitation of flows of people, of bodies. So in other words, when we speak about this extractive logic as one of the mechanisms that has taken us to this point, is because the extractive logic seeks to grab the spheres that are essential for sustaining life. So when we think about extractivism and extractive industries, we have to think about the harm that is being done, not only to the territories that are, of course, inhabited by communities, but also to the systems that can guarantee the continuation of life on Earth. Mm-hmm. So for indigenous movements in Abya Yala, the crisis is only the consequence of this process of violence and dispossession. So what's the role of technology in this crisis? And I was mentioning, or I have been mentioning a couple of times, the body and the territory as the locus of, as the place where dispossession and violence takes place. And this category or this concept of body and territory was coined by Maya Quiche activist and communitarian feminist called Lorena Cabnal. But this idea of the impossibility to divide the body and the territory comes from many ancestral cosmovisions that think about the territory not as separated from the communities, but as part of the communities. So constitutive part of the communities. So when we speak about how this extractive logic operates on the bodies and the territories, we are actually understanding that this is affecting directly to the communities that inhabit these territories. So this is a quotation from the Assembly of Indigenous Peoples in Oaxaca, in the Oaxaca region. And they say that the extractive violence and dispossession that plagues indigenous peoples and communities begins with the body. The body is taken as someone else's property, controlled, beaten, mutilated, cursed, and murdered. So indigenous peoples and land defenders in Latin America are being killed because they are defending their territories. And they are defending their territories because they believe that the territories are part of what they are. If they are displaced from their territories, they no longer will be able to subsist, to exist, to survive. And unfortunately, Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia are the places where most indigenous peoples and land defenders are killed. And it's not casual because, as you know, Brazil, the indigenous peoples in Brazil are the guardians of the Amazon, and also in Mexico, indigenous peoples are the guardians of in general, in the world, indigenous peoples are the guardians of the biosphere. So this extractive logics is a logic that is imposed as a model of human interaction, as a model of human relationship with one another and with the ecosphere. So when we are living in this logic, we cannot think of others as being part of what we are, and we do not think about the consequences of our actions on others and other territories. So this is an image that explains the affections or the effects of the extractive industries in Latin America, and considering this idea of the body territory. So extractive industries like agro-industries or mining or the hydroelectrics, every industry has an impact on the bodies and the territories of the people. So we can see, for example, there are mental consequences, there are health consequences in terms of the skin and different sicknesses and things like that. So when we think about the extractive industries and also these processes that are causing harm in these territories, but also in the communities, then we can understand that when we speak about technologies that help to optimize these processes of extractivism, also are helping to exert violence into these territories and peoples. So hegemonic socio-technical systems play a significant role in the optimization of extractive processes and the automation of violence at scale. So when we speak about violence, then we are speaking about all types of violence: biophysical, cognitive, affective, gender, sexual, racial, epistemic and cultural, social, political, legal, regulatory, economic, socio-technical, environmental violence. And this violence is also related as the underlying logic of the alliances that are made between the actors that are controlling the development of technology, but also the actors that are all the stakeholders that are involved in controlling the production of goods. And in this case, for example, the extractive industries that are allied with the tech and data industries, with political regimes that are totalitarian, and that are creating regimes of truth, creating narratives and imaginaries about the world, but also about what is considered good or bad. And in some, they are, in a way, promoting this idea of a universal world order that we need to follow. So, for example, the alliance of different industries is a very good example to show how this mechanism work in practice. So in this case, for example, the alliances between two big corporations, Bayer and Monsanto, Bayer controlling the pesticides and Monsanto controlling also the seeds, is not only an alliance between two agro-industries, but also it's an alliance in terms of the control of data and information. So if they control the data about the seeds, they are also in control of the possibilities of producing food in the future. Who is controlling the data and the information about the soil, the seeds, and the land, then also can have an advantage to control the future of food. So the company that, it says, the company that masters seeds, soil, and climate information and can process the new genomic information will inevitably gain control of agricultural inputs worldwide. Seeds, pesticides, fertilizers, and farm machinery. So it's not casual that these companies are creating these alliances. And it's not casual that they are also developing technologies to optimize, for example, farm machinery. But also it is interesting to see the alliances between this and the data industry. So in connection with political regimes in Brazil, unfortunately, the Bolsonaro government was he understands perfectly this connection between the agro-industry and also the need to create this narrative, these regimes of truth that legitimize exploitation. So, for example, if we deny the climate emergency, then it is possible to create regulations that permit agro-industries to destroy the Amazon and also, unfortunately, to kill people that are living there. So it's not casual, again, that these industries work together with political regimes, creating these narratives about what's happening to us, because this is how the legitimation of the extractivist processes and dispossession and violence can occur. So I draw this diagram to see that when we speak about these fancy technologies or these supposedly super powerful technologies, in reality, what we are speaking about a world system that is based on the need to increase the possibilities of dispossession and extractivism. So we are not speaking about only the AI, for example, and data pipeline. We are not speaking only about collecting data to create new services or new products, new technologies. We are speaking about how this system, this socio-technical system, is part of a world system and a geopolitical order where this contributes to consolidate a certain world order. And also, of course, when we were speaking about the body and the territory, as the body and the territory are part of this whole system. So AI is not the technology that will help us or will solve our problems. AI is the ultimate tool for the automation of life and death. But what can we do and what do we need? And people from Abya Yala, these indigenous communities, and many other activists and land defenders, digital rights activists, communities, activists, tech grassroots movements are trying to think and also to develop and maintain technologies that are not extractive, technologies that are not built under the, that are not supporting the market, but technologies that are designed and sustained by communities. So there's another activist, Mapuche activist called Moira Millán, and she says that she learned from the knowledge of the Chachay, this is the grandfather, that technology must be earth-loving. It is possible to create a vital technology as opposed to the technology of capital, to the extractivist biotechnology that literally manipulates the essence of seeds, in short, to the technologies of death. So in Abya Yala, many people are working towards creating these technologies of life, these technologies that are earth-loving, opposed to these technologies of capital. And for Arturo Escobar, again, we need to understand that technological development that is under the control of the capital is related also to this process of creating more artificiality and more computing power. So he says there exists no doubt a correlation between the intensification of the capitalist engineering of the earth and the rise of computation and artificiality. Countering the combined futuring effects of these deadly processes by envisioning different futures and futures indifference becomes an onto-epistemic, cultural, and political endeavor of utmost importance. So there are also many ways to refer to these alternative technologies, plural technologies, technodiverse technologies, cosmotechnics, technology, says Josiah Aguilar, or thinking about digital communalities. Tequio in Mexico is a cultural, it's a practice in many cultures of Abya Yala, not only Mexico, but it's a practice that refers to achieving a goal collectively. In Brazil, it's similar to Mutirão. In the Andean region, we call it Minga or Minca. But in every, I would say almost in every culture, there are practices that are related to achieve things together and not for money, but for the common good. So I think that we need a radical ethics and politics of care that takes into account the multidimensional impacts of technological development on most of the planet that assumes a shared responsibility for the damage and erosion of life-supporting systems. So this collective, Surciendo, based in the south state of Chiapas in Mexico, they say, well, can technology be designed in line with permaculture principles? For example, can we think of technologies that are close to us, technologies that are that we know where they come from, technologies that we can cultivate by ourselves? Can we produce no waste? Can we share fairly? Can we care for people and care for the earth at the same time? And also, for example, they also ask, can we build an internet or technologies that moves at the rhythm of sunflowers? Because we know that nature has their own rhythms, and these rhythms respond to the possibility of regenerating every time, every day. So they ask, can we have these technologies that connect us with the environment? Also, Joana Barón, another activist, and Lucia Egaña, an artist, they ask, can AI be a garden? Can we imagine technologies that are really life-supporting? And lastly, to conclude, I will speak about what does it mean to have a pluriversal future. Pluriversality is another term that comes from the Zapatista movement, a movement that is fighting against the Mexican state to have the possibility to live in a different way, based in communal practices and communal values. So from this movement comes this idea of the pluriverse as a world where many worlds fit. Because this idea of the plural instead of the mono, for example, we have monocultures, but if we had the understanding of pluriversal cultures, then we also can understand that diversity is not only good because being different is good, but that diversity is essential to reproduce life, to maintain life, to sustain life. So this again comes from the Indigenous Futures Network. This is a manifesto for the future. And indigenous, this network of indigenous people in Abya Yala, they say that in this time of ecocide and genocide, pandemics, extreme droughts, massive fires, air pollution, mass extinction of species, in this time of imposed death, we organize politically. We, the voices of people who have been defending life on Earth for thousands of years, have a hope to share. Alternatives to the climate crisis already exist, they are alive. And indigenous peoples are the guardians and custodians of linguistic, cultural, and spiritual diversity, and 80% of the planet's remaining biodiversity. So indigenous people are 5% of the population of the world, but they are guardians of 80% of the planet biodiversity. So when we say that we need to defend diversity, not only biodiversity, but the diversity of people, is because the diversity of people, of languages, of ways of being is also related to the possibility to continue living on Earth. So this is also another activist from Brazil. And in Brazil, the indigenous movement is very big. But again, they are being threatened by the state and also by these corporations. But they say, well, the future is ancestral. If we can acknowledge that practices that are related to the commons, to the common good, but also to this idea of being entangled, and that everything we do has an impact on others and on the earth, then we will have a chance to survive. So Gladys Sul, another activist, says, well, the form of resistance should be communal. And well, this is also from Brazil. This is a gathering that they have every year. And I don't know, at this gathering, like 6,000 of people, met like last month. So alternative ways of being, knowing, feeling, doing, sensing, and inhabiting the world are possible, but they require an ethical political commitment. And this ethical political commitment means also an onto-epistemic commitment, an understanding of these entanglements, an understanding of how these systems are connected, and also to understand this web of interdependencies that makes up life, to defend the biosphere as a planetary commons and as a shared responsibility to guarantee the reproduction of life. We need to repair the relational nature of existence to be able to imagine an alternative future that allows for being, thinking, feeling, doing, and living together. The future is a territory to be defended. And yeah, this needs to happen now. Wow.
Maybe we can put the seats here and then we can.
I need to look at the Q&A.
Online.
Yeah. So it's it.
Hey, thank you so much, Paula. Yeah, it's so wonderful to hear your sort of radical thought. At the Oxford Internet Institute, a lot of us work on issues of technology and policy and corporations and governments and all those power relations. And I think sometimes we really lose touch with, I guess, like history and these critical politics that really have grounded how this industry has been built up. So yeah, it's so valuable for us to engage with your thinking. Yeah, so I think I want to just thank you again for joining us today. I'm so inspired by your like organizing and academic work, and Anna bringing you into this space. So yeah, really excited for this Q&A. I'll try and go between online questions and in-person questions, and we've got about 20 minutes, I think. So hopefully we can kind of get into the topics that you've talked about. But I just have something to kick us off, if that's okay. And please take your time thinking through, because these are very deep thoughts. So if you don't want to rush yourself. So you spoke about corporate alliances on data and information and the violence enacted on the body territory, which is such an important concept for us to all think about. And this seems to apply a lot to the AI industry, the way that corporations work together to scale a certain vision of the world based on this big extractive supply chain, which Anna has done a lot of research on, you have done a lot of research on. So I just wonder, drawing from your organizing work, could you speak a bit more to how communities are resisting these corporate realities?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Well, first I would like to say that usually, of course, we are living in a very hard moment of history, and people are suffering. People, we don't feel well about it. But I think that we need to remember that people have resisted now and always, and that resistance is always possible. So for me, it's very inspiring to see how people resist. Of course, it's not easy because we are speaking about people being killed every day. But nevertheless, I think that resistance comes in many ways. And if we think about this, when I was speaking about this commonality of being, knowing, and feeling, for me, it's also important to understand that these orders operate at every dimension, like at the micro scale, in our bodies, in our feelings, but also at the macro scale. So they're connected. I like Brazilian sociologist that is called Sueli Rolnik, because she speaks about the colonization of this unconscious, the colonization of our desires. And I think that we need to reflect on that, because everything begins in the body. And every resistance begins in the body. And what that means is that begins in what we are, in what we think, in what we desire or imagine, in what we feel. And then when you think of that, then I think you find space for resistance. If you fight for your own dignity, but also for the dignity of others, then you're resisting. If you are, for example, I don't know, here we're in a policy, public policy institute. If you are trying to promote public policies that are aware of the harm that is being done, then you are resisting. If you are, I don't know, using technologies that are not corporate, you are also resisting. If you disconnect from your phone and you connect with your partner, colleagues, with others, you are resisting. So again, resistance is collective. I mean, it begins with our bodies, but the forms of resistance is collective. So we need to politically organize to resist and to think that this is not a personal, just a personal thing. It involves us all. We are all responsible for, acting and trying to transform these, let's say, violent systems.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think your work on like the micro-political and the macro-political are really interesting for us to think about, because often we situate ourselves academically. Either I'm looking at the macro-political or I'm looking at the micro-political, and it's easy to get kind of lost in those different levels rather than thinking about how it's all related. And your point on collective action, I think, is really interesting for the Oxford Internet Institute, because sometimes we're also busy trying to progress our academic careers. We forget to kind of just like organize and discuss things that are happening. So for example, there's lots of students at the encampment for Palestine at the moment, and it's sort of a reminder that if you just drop by, we're enacting a kind of collective solidarity for global political horrific atrocities that are happening. So thank you so much for that reminder.
Thank you. And I think solidarity is important, but also those of us who have some privilege, we need to think about our responsibility as well.
Lots to think about. Yeah, thank you so much. I don't see questions online, so I think we'll go 1, 2, and 3. So if you'd like to share your question first.
Thanks for the talk. I was wondering if you could give some, like, an example or two maybe of some like algorithmic technologies that you think are being deployed in this way to kind of de-link from the colonial matrix of power, or sort of offer a decolonial alternative.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there are many examples actually of people trying to develop AI in a different way, but they're trying first to, let's say, challenge what do we think about AI. For example, we need lots of data. We need technology that is universal. So people are trying to build local, small AIs, I would say, that do not collect data from everyone. For example, I'm thinking about community developed technologies. There's an example from New Zealand. The Maori community developed a natural language processing technology in Maori with communal licenses that cannot be the data and also the technology cannot be used for commercial purposes. The licenses are developed following the traditional ancestral values, and these technologies are used for the community, like in the first place, to revitalize their language, to work with other members of the community. So that's a very, I think that's a very powerful example of communities taking back the possibility to develop the technologies they need. So I'm part of a project that is trying to develop AI technologies with feminist values. So over the past 3 years, we have been supporting multidisciplinary teams based, I'm coordinating the Latin American hub based in our territories, led by women, for example, and trying to develop technologies that we need, that the communities need, for example, to achieve gender justice. There is a platform that was developed in Argentina called Emurai, and this technology is is an open resource, but is aimed at providing the judges a tool to understand gender biases in the courts and las sentencias, ¿cómo se dice?
And the report, like, yeah, the core report.
Yeah, so that they can understand that when people write about women, they can incorporate that, I mean, discrimination against women before even the judge makes its decision. So that's an example of a very specific technology. Then we also have another team that developed a tool to make to audit biased algorithms, but in Spanish, but not only in terms of gender or racial bias, but also to understand how works class discrimination or professional discrimination, age discrimination in our language, because as you probably know, Spanish is a gender language. So all these tools that are developed like in the global north, when we use them, it's like very obvious that they discriminate against women, against people that, I don't know, certain professions. So they are developing, well, they develop this tool so anyone can, without knowing anything about coding, they can use this tool to understand how bias works. So that's another example. And then we have, for example, we have many, but 3 examples. We have another team that is working with indigenous communities in the north part of Mexico. And in the north and, well, other places in Mexico, of course, we do not have water. And this community is very concerned about the lack of water. And they are working to develop an AI aid system to collect data from the territory and to incorporate their ancestral ways to govern water, but using the data that is produced or collected by them. So that's another example.
Really interesting examples. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Obviously, so much work going on, so I'm sure.
Yeah, there's
You're
a
very
lot
busy.
going on. Yeah, the problem is that of course, this work is not visible. People like powerful actors do not care about the work that's been done by communities, but it's happening.
And I think there was this person here, and then you, if that's okay.
Thank you, Goshi. Thank you for the talk. It was a really good presentation. I hope we'll get the template. So you talked about privilege, and we here at OII and even at BKC and Harvard, we feel like I feel like it's a privilege to have this knowledge. It's the privilege of knowledge, and with privilege, I feel maybe there's some responsibility as well. We have the Palestine encampment going on here, and we know that Israel has been using an AI tool, Lavender, to decide on targets. And probably this is the first time that genocide has been outsourced to an AI tool. It's not let's say it's not something that was not planned. It was probably something that is deliberate, so that responsibility cannot lie on a government or some officials. That AI did this, so we're not responsible.
Yeah, I was referring to that when I was mentioning automating life and death. I was referring exactly to that.
So when we are in these privileged positions, how do you think we should organize academically? Because in the end, a lot among us are here to further our own careers as well, but there are repercussions as well. So if we try to organize, how should we organize? And in a way that our academic careers are also preserved, and we are able to, because research is for social good, I feel. How do you feel we should organize in academic spaces so that we can use that privilege for social good?
Yeah, I perfectly understand, and I know it's a very difficult question. My son is he's studying math at the MIT, and as an immigrant and a person who has been fighting a lot, to get there, because it's not easy, because we know what these institutions mean. I think that we need, I was mentioning that there are many ways to resist. And one thing that we can, I don't know, at least for me, it's important that you have to understand that you cannot give away your dignity. And that you also can be working towards a cause without sacrificing yourself. And there are many ways in academia that you can do that, because I think that we need critical knowledge. We desperately need critical knowledge in places like this. When I first came to Harvard, and now that I came here, for me it's very impressive how the production of knowledge, and that's why coloniality, for me it's important. The production of knowledge is associated with the production of technologies and the production of also these political systems. So if you work towards a world that is against violence over others, then I think that critical knowledge is important. And also you can work with the communities like out there in the streets. There are many ways to work for a cause. And all the ways that you think are possible for you are good. Everything is needed, anything. So anything you could do, it's gonna be fine. And I think that privilege means to make sure that you are making all that you can to change that social order, but to understand that you cannot do it alone, that you need to find other people like you and to think together what's the response to that question. So find your community and think together what could be the best response for you to the question of how to organize and what to do in your circumstances.
Thank you so much. I hate to see that the clock is almost on 6 p.m, but I know that you have a question and would love to hear it. I think it sounds like we'll be able to kind of linger a little bit and talk afterwards, if that's okay. Yeah, I've been told to sort of be a bit on the clock, so maybe we'll start with your question and go from there.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. I think it's so important how you link the body to the larger global processes. My question is relates to the fact that some of the harms stem from the way in which artificial intelligence operates, from the fact that it uses statistical techniques, from the fact that it uses the logic of optimization. And these harms manifest themselves in particular contexts. So in one context, for example, the aspect of using statistical techniques is not problematic, but in other contexts, you cannot eliminate the harm precisely because of the way in which artificial intelligence operates. And so my question is whether we need much more nuanced discussions, because when we talk about the fact that we can just fix technology, that can ignore the fact that it's the way in which technology, it's what machine learning is, for example. So if we were to eliminate harms, we would have to design something that functions so radically that perhaps we would need a whole new definition of what artificial intelligence is. And so I'm just curious, do you think we need a more nuanced discussion? And if so, what would it look like? Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the problems it relates to the political economy of the AI industry. So I think that any corporation like that is so big and with so much power, it's harmful by like definition. So we are not trying to fix that technology. That's not, I don't think that's the point, because we don't think that technology can be fixed. For me, what we are trying to do is to rethink technologies that work for us, that are technologies that we can manage and we can design, that maybe they are not called AI, maybe they should be called something else. But again, to move away to this, because AI is a narrative as well. AI, if it's an imaginary. So if we can move away of these technologies and create the conditions for people to design the technologies that they need, then I think we should be able to, to imagine and create different technologies. So in general, I don't think that we can, what we need is to change the social order that promotes the creation of these technologies for death, and also to understand the geopolitics and the political economy of these technologies. Yeah, so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I feel so cruel cutting off the questions, so maybe we can hang around a little bit. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and again to Anna for hosting wonderful critical scholars at the OII, and Ellen for putting the space together, and everyone for attending. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.